The Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor joins us now. Angus Taylor, thanks for your time. You've set a clear set of tasks really for Jim Chalmers to achieve. One of them is that structural surplus. How should he go about achieving that?
Well, Kieran, so can I say thank you for having me, but can I say first of all, the critical point here is that the cost of living relief that every Australian wants and deserves is lower inflation. It benefits absolutely everybody, and economists have understood for a long while the best way to get there is to make sure that governments are living within their means, and we've got a government here that's added $209 billion of spending so far since they came to power. And all the indications are from Jim Chalmers that he's going to spend a lot more. Now, he's not willing to say how much more, but we've had lots of signals from him that he wants this to be a big spending budget. And the test for this budget is it going to put downward pressure on prices? Now, we've said the key here is to make sure your economy grows faster than your spending, contain your growth in spending, making sure your economy is growing faster than that. That brings the budget back to structural surplus. It's pretty straightforward. And we've opposed $45 billion of spending, but also we've seen a huge amount of waste from this government. $450 million for a failed referendum. The Treasurer himself has set up a $40 million spin unit. We've got grants going off to the CFMEU. And in crucial areas like in NDIS, we want to see a sustainable NDIS, we've offered to work with them on a bipartisan basis. But frankly, at this point, the government has only indicated that its goal is to spend more.
So from that list that you gave us there at the end, that's where you would find the cuts, places like the NDIS and so on.
You know, the point here is just start by not growing it the way you're growing it. I mean, $20,000 of extra spending for the average Australian household since Labor came to power, $20,000. And what Simon Banks said a moment ago, by the way, about majority savings, that's just made up numbers. It's not even close to correct. This is a government that has been adding a great deal of spending, $209 billion across the forwards. We're about to see more because Jim Chalmers has already told us that. That is not how you beat inflation. And this is homegrown. This is Labor's homegrown inflation now. It's very clear. Inflation domestically on non-tradables is running at 5%. On tradables coming from overseas, it's under 1%, Kieran. It is very clear. The Economist has said we have the most persistent inflation of any advanced country in the world. It's clear that we have amongst the highest levels of inflation of any advanced country in the world. And this government is resolute on doing exactly the opposite of what is required. We've even heard that in the MIA bill that they're going to put out. Lots more spending coming, no doubt. Well, tell us how much. And it needs to be contained.
Given the cost of living challenge that you've articulated today, and inflation is such a huge issue, can you see why the ACTU wants a substantial 9% increase for those in feminised workforces, places like childcare where they are largely on the minimum wage?
Yeah, well, I could see that everybody wants to have more purchasing power in their pay packet. That's what every Australian wants, including in those industries. And I think they are. But the best way to improve the purchasing power in your bank account, to improve the purchasing power in your pay packet, is to get inflation down. And then it's not just those industries who do better, who deserve to do better, but everybody, Kieran. This is something that can unite us. A government that focuses on fighting inflation the right way, rather than going about it, saying one thing and doing another. I mean, the truth is this Treasurer, he's a doctor of spin, not a doctor of economics, and it shows. It shows every single day in the way he approaches this. He thinks the answer to the cost of living crisis is to put out a press release. No, the answer is to do the hard things that's going to put downward pressure on prices and going to set up the Australian economy for longer-term private sector-driven growth, which is how you achieve growth. He doesn't understand that, and it's showing in the outcomes.
Beyond just the reduction in spending and so on that you're arguing for, in the budget reply that Peter Dutton will deliver, will the coalition start to articulate specific measures that you will be taking to the people in terms of easing some of these pressures?
We already have and will continue to. I mean, we've been very clear that this government has failed on its $275 reduction promise, and that there is an alternative pathway for energy, and we'll be saying more about that over the next little while. We've been very clear that we need to establish fiscal rules that give us a sustainable budget. We had that in the last budget and reply speech, and it'll be there this time again, Kieran, and I've re-emphasised that point today. We've opposed $45 billion of spending from Labor. And Labor will say, well, we're opposing things. That's right. We're opposing things that are making the situation worse.
And the energy price issue, will that be a big part of the budget reply?
Sorry, say that again, Kieran.
The energy price issue and that response, you said there's going to be more to come. Sure. Is that a big part of the budget reply? Yeah. Should we expect that to form a big part of that?
I'm not going to give you the budget reply speech today, Kieran, but you will hear more talk from us and policies and detail from us on energy, as we've been giving in recent weeks. We'll continue to do that, and we'll also point out that you've got to have an immigration rate that's in line with your housing supply. We've seen it completely out of kilter. Over 500,000 immigrants in a year, where the housing necessary to support that is at best half of what is required. I mean, these are completely unsustainable situations. There is a better way. It is back to basics. It's all the things we learnt when we had the last cost of living crisis, inflation crisis in this country in the 70s and the 80s. But this government is putting its head in the sand because it wants a big spending election budget. Let's be clear. That's the goal of the Treasurer, because he's politics first and the real policy needed second.
Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor, thanks.
Thanks for having me, Kieran.